Thank you. Well, I feel like we've already had more than enough for one meeting tonight. And I certainly have enjoyed listening to all of these stories and being inspired by them. Anyone hungry for a green smoothie? I think green smoothies and living waters need to get together. Maybe living waters can go to San Francisco and green smoothies can go to Africa, and see how that all works out. But yeah, it is pretty inspiring stories. You know, I saw that $30,000 a month for smoothies. You know, $14 a smoothie. You know, that's over 100 smoothies a day that you're producing there out of your kitchen and taking to those farm places. And you know what I was thinking about too with the schizophrenia thing. You know, we've had a strong desire to have a schizophrenic program here at Weimar Institute, but the college and academy administrators are a little nervous about that. You know, it's one thing to have 20 people with depression and anxiety. Last time we had a double program, depression and anxiety, but when you get 20 schizophrenics together and you have students on campus, you know, there are some concerns. And so we decided we were going to do it when the students leave in December, so that there wouldn't be a cause for concern regarding the students. And but I'm thinking, you know, green smoothies could come up as you know, and we can have them do that 3D, working with your hands in 3 dimensions and helping out the schizophrenics. We actually have had schizophrenics in our program. We don't have a whole program of schizophrenics, but it is amazing what happens with hydrotherapy and with the CBT. And I met someone, you know, just a month ago that had been here 2 years ago and had slipped in the door. How do we have schizophrenics do it? Well, we do these phone interviews, and sometimes they can make it covert because they realize that they're not going to accept schizophrenics in this program. And so they say all the right words and do all the right things and are schooled all the right ways, and then we have them here. And yes, we can send them home, but if they're not going to be that disruptive, we'll sometimes put them through the program. And this young man was put through the program who was clearly schizophrenic. And in fact, his counselor the other day was saying, you know, wasn't it so sad that we took up a spot for that schizophrenic patient that just wasn't going to do very well. And I said, you know, I met him last month and his schizophrenia is gone. It all started, what hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, what did happen, he was from Arkansas. At that time I lived in, it was before our move here to California. I was going back and forth, but he came and followed up with us every month in Oklahoma and kept on the program. And the Lord healed him, and he is successful, and doesn't have any of these delusions, hallucinations, and is quite an active young man. So natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. And it's nice to hear so many of these stories. I'm geared up for some more, actually, but thank you, each one, and thanks for ASI coming to Weimar Institute. It's nice for us to be able to hear some of these stories among our students and others. Well, the crisis in education in the world and in the church, I won't take long. We'll shorten it some. But there is a crisis in education in our world and in the church. And this crisis you might wonder how I got involved in education. I'm a physician, and that's another story. I was called into being a physician, but I was a physician who was had an extremely successful internal medicine practice. One internal medicine doctor and 14 employees working in the clinic so that we could run as efficiently as we could. It was a high-cost clinic, but we ran through a number of patients and had a very streamlined system. But one of the reasons why we had to do that is demands were great. We had far more patients than what we could schedule or see. And so we had to try to streamline it. One of the things I realized is that Christ did not actually spend a lot of time with, he did spend a lot of time with certain people, but for his healings, it wasn't a whole lot of time. It was a few minutes here and there, very quality time. But I realized we needed more physicians who were doing what I was doing. Not only, in the physician work I was doing, it was much more than just the pharmaceutical, procedural, diagnostic aspect of things. We were using natural remedies and a contemplative and a scientific approach that was producing results that people just couldn't quit talking about it. So we'd always have a lot more people coming. And I thought, I need another physician like me. I need to find them. And so I would call around, and they would all be just as busy as I was in the same type of situation. And I realized the only way we can get more physicians like this is to change our educational system. And so it has to start with education. So I thought, we need an education summit. What can we do to change our educational system? In regards to physicians, I thought, well, the way we can educate them in regards to natural therapies is maybe in the pre-med time. They're taking organic chemistry and general chemistry and all of those things, but we can have them take nutrition, we can have them take the pre-med courses, but also augment that with many of the other courses that would help, plus the spiritual aspect that is so important in comprehensive health ministry. And so I called together a few leaders in education, some in our church. One of them was a former president of Weimar. Herb Douglas was in that group. And we held a summit in Ardmore, Oklahoma, where I was at, of probably about 20 different leaders. What can we do to change the educational system and to maybe start something new or to be involved in an educational center that would be willing to change? And none of the educational systems that we talked to were willing to change, and there was a lot of impetus and a lot of presentations, but no, we're doing things our way. We can't go that route. Accreditation, will get in the way, and we need to be accredited, so we can't do those sorts of things. There was all sorts of reasons that were given that weren't really the real reason, probably. And so we ended up deciding to start an educational center, but the individual we had to put it together to start ended up having family issues, and it kind of died, and we got busy with things, and so it kind of dropped off the radar screen until Weimar was in crisis and the college closed. And it looked like Weimar New Start was going to close. They thought they could stay open, but they didn't figure out that they couldn't without student labor. And so with student labor being gone, it looked like that was going to go away. And then Amazing Facts stepped in, and they stepped in on the basis that I would come and be president here. And that wasn't in my plans. I wanted an educational system to do it, to have things done in a better way, but I did not want to head up the educational system. And, but I put it through the pro-con list with the with God influencing my frontal lobe, and although it wasn't my desire, it wasn't my limbic system desire at all. You can see what happened. And so that's how the college here started to change, where it's a pre-med institution. You know, I can just tell you, there's no better place to do pre-med in America than right here at Weimar Institute. There just isn't. And the ones that'll go through it and through to completion and see how all the pieces and the puzzles put together, and the same with the other programs that are being held here at Weimar. And so God is raising up an educational institution. But let's talk about the world first. What's the problem with the world? The regional accreditation system is broken. This is according to the educators. The results show that many students are leaving college with degrees, but little to no improvement in what? Critical thinking or complex reasoning skills. And they follow them throughout their Ivy League schools, and a high percentage of them improve not one bit in their critical thinking or be able to actually think outside the box. They do have small groups of presumably self-motivated kids who are learning a lot among a majority who are getting by, but the most successful students tend to work on their own rather than studying or working in groups. One aspect of this could be due to self-motivation or simply study habits, but another reason that surfaces is that these successful students don't like to group up, because the majority of those groups are kids from the 45% who still haven't grasped critical thinking and put them behind. Many graduates have trouble sifting fact from fiction, even though they might graduate from Harvard. They have trouble addressing subjects objectively, trouble reconciling and analyzing conflicting reports of a single event, trouble making decisions and arguments based on what? Fact and logic, without being affected by appeals to emotion or political spin. We are in the most gullible period of time in human history. We have a lot of people out there that can't think for themselves, and they have to have others think for them, and the others that are thinking for them aren't thinking really either. They're thinking in very biased ways. And so we're at a crisis. And then you add to this is the center of Mass General. This is New England Journal of Medicine. 60% of college students today have a psychiatric disorder. The number one reason why college presidents lose sleep, and now I sit next to these college presidents. You know, even though the regional accreditation system is broken, they're accrediting us. And you might say, why in the world would you do that? Well, as it turns out, well, let me just tell you some stories. You know, there's a group, and I'll just label them. They may not be labeled correctly, but there's a group of faithful, conservative Seventh-day Adventists who tell me, stay away from anything to do with accreditation. It's going to ruin you and cause all the same problems that all the other places caused, because they have to go that route because of accreditation. And as we have gotten involved in the process, we have found out that there's been some miscommunication and deception on both sides in regards to this argument. Let me just give you an example. I was just told today, the number one Adventist website that has the most hits, never even heard of it prior to today. We just heard of another one up here, all these hits on the baking and cooking. But this one gets even more than the baking and cooking site. What's the name of it? Lorraine, you were the one who told me. Where is Lorraine? Bible Flockbox. BibleFlockbox.com. So when I heard about it, I thought, well, let me get on there. And the first thing that has the most hits is 10 shocking facts about contemporary Christian music. So this guy gets all the hits, but I didn't get on there to see what he was saying about contemporary Christian music, but there's 10 shocking facts about it. And but a couple of years ago, there were a couple of professors that were let go from a university music department who are at the top of their field. And they were let go because they wouldn't teach rock and roll and wouldn't teach contemporary Christian music. And they were applying for a position at Weimar. And so I called up the college president to find out the real story, because I figured that can't be the real story. There's got to be something else going on. And the college president said, that is the real story. They're great people. They do a great job. They have their own personal convictions. And we're sorry that their personal convictions get in the way of accreditation. And I said, we're undergoing accreditation. I didn't see that in our accreditation requirements. Oh, well, it wasn't the regional accreditation. It was the specific music accreditation body that we're utilizing. Yes, we have the same accreditation that you're pursuing, but it's the music accreditation piece that's the problem. So they came for the interview, and things went well. And I said, if you were to come to Weimar, however, we are getting accredited through WASC, but we don't want the music accreditation that your university came from. And they said, why in the world would you not want them? They're very good music accreditors. I said, I understand that's why you're losing your job. And they said, and they started laughing. And they said, well, yes and no. The music accreditors don't say anything that we have to teach contemporary Christian or rock and roll or opera or any of that. But they make us teach what we say we're going to teach. And the university music department stated that that's what we're going to teach. And so that's why accreditation was blamed for the reason why we're having to go this way. And so what I have found out is that many of these universities that have gone apart and towards the track of the world are utilizing accreditation as an excuse for their union president chairman and those type of things. But that's not the real reason. The accrediting body is not proscriptive that way, particularly here in California it's not. And in fact, it opens a way for us to be a far better institution in regards to actually proving that we're doing what we say we do, or if we're not doing it, what we're going to change so that we do it. And so, for instance, our accrediting learning outcomes in our religion area does not state what this university states, or the other many of the other universities. Everyone has their own student learning outcomes that are presented as part of the accreditation. But for instance, one of the student learning outcomes in the religion area states that the student learning outcome is that they will be able to have an appreciation for all religions and critique sacred text. It's one of our own institutions. And so when students come out critiquing sacred texts and having an appreciation for all religions, the parents get upset because they're no longer members of the Adventist faith and they think everything else is equal. They're not really seeing the biblical aspect of things as being primary importance, and they're saying something went wrong. But no, everything went right. That's what was being presented as what they're being measured against. Our student learning outcome, however, is quite different. And our student learning outcome states clearly that the student will actually be following the Bible in regards to their mission and emphasis, and it gives a lot of specific examples. In fact, every bachelor's student will preach an expository sermon and an exegetical sermon. I can tell you one of our pre-med students was very upset about that. She was a female introvert. She was a very good pre-med student here, but she was female introvert, and she said, "I'm not doing that. I'm leaving Weimar." And her parents said, "No, I think you need to stay. Everything else is good. Just put up with this." So for her speech class, she took homiletics because of her schedule. Homiletics counts as a speech class. And in the homiletics, of course, she learned to do this. And so she put on and preached from this pulpit an expository sermon and an exegetical sermon. And they were home runs. People came to the Lord over those messages. And what a difference it made in her life as well. Because now she is a public speaker that can eloquently present the biblical and the scientific message. She's actually one of the top students in the School of Medicine down there right now. But what a difference it is. So what is the crisis in the church? I'll just put it simply. 25 years ago, the median age of Seventh-day Adventists were 32 in North America. Do you know what it is now, 25 years later? It's 51. By the way, that was several years ago, 51. I've been told now it's 54, but I haven't seen the statistics to quote that. What does that mean? We've lost a whole generation. It's not because they haven't been educated by our schools. 50,000 students are in Adventist schools in North America today. If we would hold on to those students, or even half of them, the median age would be way back down again. But we're losing them. And they may be going out and working in the world, but they're no longer having the message. And they're not living the message, nor do they even necessarily believe the message. General Conference Executive Committee was presented with data that's pretty alarming. I won't, I'll go into maybe a little bit of it. Survey of 1,200 students, you can see where they were from. They asked for each one of the undergraduate institutions. Loma Linda was not included because they're a postgraduate institution. But only 3 universities allowed this, others declined. But how many believe the Adventist Church is the last day remnant church of the alumni in those 12 years? Only 40%. And only 6% actually read the Spirit of Prophecy. And of course, things are a lot, we've done the studies here at Weimar, things are a lot different here. 92% of our students are, as alumni since 2008, are actively participating in soul winning in their local churches. And we're now, with accreditation, we had to be evaluated. We're the #1 school in the nation in students being able to solve real-world complex problems. Don't say that biblical Adventism is not relevant. It's extremely relevant. And according to the secular organizations, our students who are being taught biblical Adventism are also learning, more so than any other student, how to solve real-world complex problems. Part of it is they're seeing a lot of real-world complex problems right here at Weimar. I mean, some of them are in regards to startup organizations, but others are in regards to the mental illnesses that they actually are able to participate in, and seeing those types of things, and the physical diseases and the serious diseases that are around. So I'd like you to open your Bibles before we close. Let's see. I thought I had this with me. Yes. 2 Kings chapter 6. Verse 1. Sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. What were these students called? Sons of the prophets. That's an endearing family term. One of the reasons why we never want Weimar Institute to become a place where thousands of students are at, because you lose that parent-son-daughter relationship. And they were running out of room. We're having that problem at Weimar. We're kind of concerned with the future because of the need for more housing here. This is why we have a 72-person housing complex being constructed right now. And so they were having this problem. They needed to have another place. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam. Verse 2, let us make a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ahead and do it. They were working with their hands. They were willing to build themselves. One said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. It's always nice when the students are asking you to go with them. And Elisha said, Go ahead and go, but he was polite. He was going to do his own things. He had plenty of things to do, but the student said, Please, you go with us as we're doing this. So verse 4 says he went with them. When they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. It tells us the lean budget that they were on. They didn't even have their own axe. They had to borrow the axe. And Weimar also has that lean budget. But even though it wasn't his axe, he didn't have the attitude of, oh, well, I guess we just need to borrow another one. Or he was very concerned about it, especially because it was borrowed. The man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick and cast it in thither. And the iron did swim. So Elisha, they came to the right person when they had a problem. They came to the prophet. And one of the things we need to understand, verse 6 doesn't seem to make sense. In fact, who was it? I think it was Dr. Benson that was telling me the other day about someone who was trying to explain this away as not being a miracle, but it was just because of the thick water or whatever type of thing. And this was a professor of his as well. But the actions of a prophet don't have to make sense. They don't have to be understood. They simply have to be followed. And if we follow the prophet's counsel, what a difference it'll be. I'll close with this. Examples in self-control. Paul before Nero, how striking the contrast. The countenance of the monarch bearing the shameful record of the passions that raged within. That's Nero. The countenance of the prisoner telling the story of a heart at peace with God and man. That's Paul. And now notice this statement. The results of what type of systems? Opposite systems of what? Education. The education of Rome versus Paul's education. The difference was contrasted. A life of unbounded self-indulgence. And that's why the world says to get educated. You can indulge yourself more. You can get more money. You can do it for you. You do it for number one. It's about pride. It's about this world. A life of unbounded self-indulgence. But what was Paul's education? A life of what? Entire self-sacrifice. Here were the representatives of two theories of life. All-absorbing selfishness, which counts nothing too valuable to be sacrificed for what? Momentary gratification. And self-denying endurance, ready to give up life itself, if need be, for the good of others. And that's why Weimar Institute exists. We're educating people who will not only be professionals and be able to reach people from all walks of life, but they are coming in contact daily with the source that will give them that self-denying endurance wherever they go, ready to give up life itself if need be for the good of others. We're told if the soul is to be purified and ennobled and made fit for the heavenly courts, there are two lessons to be learned. Self-sacrifice. And what else? Self-control. By the way, that's how you get comprehensive self-control, is by putting all on the altar of sacrifice laid for the Lord. And of course, when you come to Weimar through New Start and depression and anxiety recovery, you find the way out, but it does require some self-control aspects. And that's why the gospel is so crucial to the success of the healing programs here. Any questions, any comments?
Thank you.
Pray for places like Weimar. The devil doesn't like it. By the way, talk about the deceptions out there about Weimar. They're everywhere. There are deceptions everywhere. We were just up at Fountain View 2 weeks ago, and the amount of deceptions the students had been taught about Weimar at a place that should know more about Weimar had to be dispelled by the two students that were here and the others. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. Where did you get that? That's not true. And that's how the devil works, by deception. So when there's a place like this going on, he'll tell you, he'll try to, and deceptions spread about 10 times faster that are negative than the good. But we're in good company when the deceptions are there, because there was no one more lied about on this earth than Jesus Christ. And he didn't get defensive. He just continued to live a life of self-sacrifice and self-control, and was able to change the world. Shall we bow our heads? Father in heaven, we thank you that you've told us a solution to the crisis in education that we have in our world and in the church. We thank you for raising up places like Weimar, and for raising them up in ways that require self-sacrifice and self-control to be successful. We thank you for each one of these ministries that you have raised up that we heard about tonight. Thank you for rescuing Rusty from a country that could have imprisoned him for many years. And we now pray that each one here might be willing to take up the spirit of Paul, might be willing to take up the spirit that Paul got his spirit from, which was your spirit, to live a life of entire self-sacrifice and comprehensive self-control. May we utilize each method that the sons of the prophets utilized. We realize that those schools were the real success of the reign of David and Solomon, It wasn't David and Solomon, we're told. It was the school of the prophets that brought them success. And may schools like Weimar bring the church even more success as your gospel is spread around the world with leadership who is on fire for you. And we thank you for hearing and answering this prayer. Give us a good night's rest, and may we be ready to receive each blessing you've prepared for us tomorrow on the Sabbath.